What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and today is what you have been anticipating, my coach's evaluation show, Offense. So this is the show where I evaluate the coaches and what they should be doing this season, and also evaluating what their current units look like in the preseason. So we're going to start off at the top. You know, like always, Ron will get evaluated on the offensive side and the defensive side. So starting off with Ron Rivera. What Ron needs to do this year is stay out of the way. We don't need him doing any type of input, making any type of adjustments, suggesting anything like that. Let Eric Bieniemy be the head coach of the offense. Let Eric Bieniemy run his style of offense. Because again, Ron sat up here and made it very clear that he felt that at the end of the day that Eric Bieniemy was so enamored by the Kansas City offense. If Eric Bieniemy is the guy who ran that, which I kind of think that he was, if he is that guy, and he's been the guy who's been calling plays, and he was calling plays and things like that, let Eric Bieniemy rock. Let him do his job. Let him do what he's supposed to do. Ron just needs to stay out the way. He needs to make sure he manages the clock well. I mean, I guess he'll use Ken Zampese to assist him with that. But again, that's something that Ron needs to do. Stay out of the way of the offense. Make sure he's calling timeouts when he needs to call timeouts. Make sure he's watching the game properly and not to give any type of input that could be a disaster when it comes to Eric Bieniemy calling plays. So again, all we need Ron to do is basically stay out of the way. Next is Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy comes from that Kansas City line. Again, those coaches have been very successful at stops that they've had. Eric Bieniemy didn't get a head coaching job. We've already heard the rumbling about him being a certain way to players and everything like that. I think that is a complete farce and a joke. I don't think that Eric Bieniemy is coaching them too hard. I think that he's doing exactly what needs to be done for an offense. When you want an offense to be great, sometimes you have to push them to a point where they get so mad that they end up doing stuff because they just don't want to hear your mouth. I mean, think about it. As men, aren't we all like that? I mean, our girls sit up there and tell us all the time, take out the trash, do this, do that. And at some point, we just do it just so we don't have to hear their mouths anymore. And to me, this is one of these cases. I think Eric Bieniemy is getting on them and everything like that. And that eventually these players will get to a point where they're like, look, I'm just going to do it this way so I don't even have to hear his mouth. So again, like I said, I think Eric Bieniemy does do a good job when it comes to the levels in the game, the way he schemes a lot of stuff, the way he gets guys truly open in comparison to Scott Turner, where there will be a lot of times where you will see receivers in the exact same spot. And we're now seeing a different level of play calling when we see Eric Bieniemy call plays. So again, he's very well versed when it comes to situational awareness as well, because there were a couple times in the preseason that you saw he understood what was happening. So again, I think Eric Bieniemy is good. We will see what happens when the game speeds up, because that is key. He has a young quarterback who's not accustomed to this system, who's new to this system as well, even though this system fits him a little bit better, because a lot of what Eric Bieniemy calls and everything, Phil Longo had a similar style as well, that West Coast style also. So again, I do think that Eric Bieniemy is a good fit, and I think he's going to do well this season. Next is Vida Pritchett, the quarterback's coach. And you know, all this for him and his job, it all relies on Sam Howell's development. If Sam comes in there and Sam that speed, that game speed gets to Sam, and Sam doesn't know how to really accommodate that game speed, or he seems like he's overwhelmed, or he has the bug eyes or anything like that, this is going to be a direct reflection on Vida Pritchett. If Vida Pritchett does not get Sam Howell where he needs to be, then we're talking about a season where we will see more Jacoby Brissett than we will see Sam Howell. So again, Vida Pritchett, his job is definitely fully on the line when it comes to being able to develop Sam Howell. Not only that, you're talking about this guy, he's developed quarterbacks, but he's developed them on a college level. He hasn't developed them on an NFL level. So this will be his first opportunity to really develop a guy on the NFL level versus the college level. So we'll definitely see what happens. But Vida Pritchett, like I said, if Sam Howell fails or doesn't become what we need him to become, then that's going to be a direct line is going to be to Vida Pritchett and possibly Eric Bieniemy, but more to Vida Pritchett. Next is Juan Castillo and Travelle Wharton as the offensive line coaches. I don't know why Ron did this, even though Juan Castillo's history in the league, because I remember him years ago when I think he was with the Chargers at one time. But he's been in the league for a long time. But to basically team him up with Travelle Wharton as the offensive line coaches, they don't have much talent on that offensive line in regards to real genuine talent that really needs to be developed. They got a lot of guys, but they don't have a lot of top level offensive linemen that makes a huge difference or will make a Pro Bowl or anything of that such nature. So their jobs are very they're going to have a tough time with their jobs this year, because they're going to have to really show that they can actually coach up some offensive linemen even though they're not top level talent linemen. Travelle Wharton has been here. His former boss, John Matskow, was jettisoned out of here after being given poor talent prior to that. And I think that that's possibly why John Matskow was let go, because of the fact that he probably complained about not getting any real talent on that offensive line. So, again, Travelle Wharton and Juan Castillo, they have a huge task in front of them to find a way to get this line to mesh and to protect Sam Howell, because if at any point this line fails and falters, that's going to be them on the front line. Also with Juan Castillo, he's also the tight ends coach, and I wonder if him being involved in the offensive line has somehow jeopardized or made him not focus on the tight ends as well as he should have this year, because you're talking about Curtis Hodges made the team, but he looked so awful in the preseason. Then you talk about John Bates dropped passes in the preseason. So, Evan Turner, we knew what he was going to be, but what else to him? You know, Juan, we haven't seen Juan actually develop a guy. So we actually have to see if Juan can truly focus on the tight ends like he should. Because, again, everybody was angry that Curtis Hodges made the team because he looked so bad in the preseason. So, again, is that because Juan Castillo is also trying to assist and help on the offensive line, that he's not really putting all his attention on the tight ends, and they're faulty? They're coming away not getting the coaching that they rightfully deserve to get better? Or is it more just these guys are not as good as we want them to be? So we'll definitely see. But again, that's Juan Castillo. I mean, again, he's basically tasked with handling two jobs, the offensive line and the tight ends. So how much of that is him being taken away from the tight ends and he just can't get these guys to focus because his focus is somewhere else? So we'll definitely see. Next is Bobby Ingram, the wide receivers coach. He's replacing a very good offensive developer, player developer in Drew Travelle, who's now in Arizona. Again, Bobby Ingram comes from Baltimore, and he was there for a very long time, but we've not seen him develop a wide receiver. With his time in Baltimore, I don't think of many receivers that he's developed there. I mean, he was there from 2014. I think he was the wide receivers coach from 2014 to 2018, I think. But again, you're talking about a guy, like, when you think about that time, there's not a lot of wide receivers that we can honestly say that we remember being developed in Baltimore that we talk about so vehemently when it comes to this. So Bobby Ingram took over a group that is very good in its own right and that are very great at catching the ball and everything like that. So he's taken over a group that is very talented and know their jobs already. But again, you talk about Kazir Allen, who was released, and I think he was brought back on the practice squad, but everybody talked about it, how poor he was as a receiver. That's not a good reflection, because again, you're talking about he's a rookie guy who should be better. Mitchell Tinsley made the roster, but Mitchell Tinsley was also one of those receivers that should not have gone undrafted because he was very good at Penn State. So again, we will see what happens with Bobby Ingram, because I haven't seen him develop anybody. So we'll definitely see if he can develop somebody down the line. But right now, I don't know. Again, maybe it's just the fact that he took the place of a guy who could develop wide receivers and did a fantastic job with developing receivers. So we'll definitely see what happens with Bobby Ingram, but he's taken over a group that is really talented and already know their job. So his job may not be as hard. Next is Randy Jordan, long time running backs coach for Washington. He's been here since the Shanahans. But with that being said, this is probably his most talented group of running backs that he's ever had to coach. He's had individual guys who's been really good, but this is probably his running back group is pretty much on par with the wide receiver group that Bobby Ingram is taking over. So this is going to more than likely be Randy Jordan's really breakout year in regards to being able to show that he can coach guys. But this is the first time that he's had this many guys with this level of talent at the running back position. I mean, you're talking about all three guys can be starters. Chris Rodriguez is one of those guys that, yeah, he has his fumbling issues, but Randy Jordan knows how to correct fumbling issues. He's done it a lot over the course of his time in Washington and everything. He's dealt with running backs who've had fumbling issues, and he's found ways to correct them. So again, this is the first time that Randy Jordan has taken over a group that is very talented at the running back position. When you think about Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Chris Rodriguez, and also Jonathan Williams, this is his most talented group he's had since he's been in Washington. So for Randy Jordan, this is going to be a very good season for him. Last but not least is our special teams coach, Nate Katzer. This guy has been nothing but consistent as a coach. He's found ways to find a guy every single year to make the Pro Bowl from off his team, and his team does a very good job. Now Ron hasn't given him much talent when it comes to the return game. When he did have Antonio Gibson back there, you saw what Antonio Gibson can do and what Antonio Gibson can do behind a really solid blocking group. And Nate did a good job with that. He made sure that the blocks were available when Antonio Gibson went back there to return. So now we have to see what happens this upcoming season, because again, he wasn't given a lot in regards to talent on the return side of everything. But other than that, we will see Nate Katzer do a fantastic job like he's always done this entire since he's been here. So again, that's what it is. That is my coaches' evaluations on the offensive side of the ball. Like I said, I do think that the offense will be better this season. But we will see what happens. We will see what happens with this offensive line. We will see what happens with the with Sam Howell and his quarterbacking ability, and if Vida Pritchett is able to do it. I mean, I do feel that this is a great, a solid offensive staff. But I will say that some of the staff won't have the talent that they really need to make them stand out as coaches. So again, we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens. But that is my evaluations of the coaches on the offensive side of the ball. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Who do y'all feel will stand out as a coach other than Bieniemy? But what other coaches do you feel will stand out this upcoming season? Other than that, this has been your man, John Fortune. Like, comment, subscribe. And this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.